I've got my batteryless jump starter repaired, my Reservo RZ-300, which it had one bad cap in it. So I replaced them all, and it's charges up fine, and I think it'll work out great. So I need is a dead battery to test it on. Um, so other than that, I just think I'll throw it in the back of the truck, and who knows whether I'll use it or not. But it was just interesting to see how these work. So let's look at what I did and how I replaced the caps and all the goodies, all the good stuff there. So the capacitors that I ordered are manufacturer is GDCPH. These are 2.7 volts, 500 farad. That's what the original is. But again, I got the ones with the screw terminals on it. And I used the same buses on top. I just took them off of the old ones. They were just crimped, kind of crimped on there. I just popped them off. Basically about the same size. Here, let's see. A little comparison. They're they're shorter, so it works out pretty good with the screw tops on them. Plus, the diameter is just a little smaller. So the interesting thing is they're using 5 caps here. That's 2.7 volts each, so 5 caps, that's 13.5 volts. So I charged it up, and even though the jump starter itself ends up, it has a 14 volt mark, it's not charging it up to 14 volts. It actually stopped, it leveled off here. Now it's down to 2.67, but it stopped at about 13.3 volts. So I was curious as whether the higher voltage is what may have damaged that other capacitor. I don't know. And actually, this one was the damaged one, and I don't know if this had anything to do with the one that was open. There, I didn't do this. This was already there. There's a dent here, and the case is actually, there's actually a hole in there. It's like something jammed in there. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Maybe damaged something on the inside of this. I don't know. But the maximum surge on these, if you look on the chart here on the spec sheet, is 2.85 volts each, which is 14.25 volts would be the max. But the charger shut off at about 13.3 volts, so we're within the 13.5 volt limit. And there's no balancing on these capacitors, and I don't believe that's an issue because these things aren't going to be hooked up all the time. I don't know what, let's see what they're measuring here each. Oh, my meter shut off. You get an idea of what's across each cap here. And we have 2.49, 2.73, 2.27, 2.59, and 2.43. So there is a little bit of difference there. So you can see where you would need balancing in a circuit that had these things energized all the time. But I have to finish up the pack. I gotta actually, there's a pretty big gap between these capacitors. There's a lot bigger gap than the other ones, so I'm going to put some hot glue down in there to keep them stable before I put the heat shrink pack back on. And as I said before, on the old pack, it's interesting. It was rated at 10 volts, 100 farads, but so that was what was in there on these original capacitors. So, and I did have a hard time. As I said, I had a hard time ordering these capacitors. For some reason, it took about 3 times to get them from on AliExpress. The first order did get shipped, but when it went to the logistics center in China, for whatever reason, it was tagged as an unauthorized export. I don't know why. And so it went back. So they gave me my money back. The second time I ordered from a different vendor, and they didn't get shipped within the 10-day shipping limit. So I got my money back. So I tried again. And instead of buying them singly, I bought the actually, there were 6 of them. There, it's starting to charge again because it dropped down a little bit. Let's hook that back up. So you can see it's let me set my meter up a little bit here. 12.67. It'll kick off about 13.5 there. I'm charging it with the USB port now, but I tested it out with charging it right from the jumpers, and it charged, and also the other port that's on here where you can jump or charge up to 10 amps. But I bought 6 of these on a board, which I removed, and this board actually has balancing in it, but actually I don't think this would be heavy enough to do the discharge that's required out of these to briefly start a car, but it doesn't matter. Those tops, the aluminum bus pieces there, the connectors, they worked out just fine. So let's see where this stops. 1307.08. I think it was around 13.3 where the charge stopped. But I'm going to put some hot glue between those, make sure everything connections are tight up there, and then shrink wrap the pack and put it back together. All right, 13.22 is actually when it stopped charging. So it's well within the limits of the capacitors. That was my only concern with only having 5 caps in there. How would it charge up the 14 volts? So it's actually not any overkill on it. So this ought to work out pretty nice. Let me get these things shrink wrapped and get this put back together and see how it looks in the box. So here it is with the shrink wrap and on the back on the capacitor bank and back in the case. I did open up the old cap. I'm not going to unwind it, but there's nothing apparent here, so there's something going on inside. No use. I'm not going to bother tearing it apart any farther than that. But this was the one that was open and not doing anything. So there you have it. All we need is a dead battery to really give it a test on a good jump. And I'll throw it in the truck and see what happens. Do you have any questions, comments about this guy? give a yell. Have a good day.